Okay, so with that, we're going to go ahead and get started with our introductions. And here's our agenda for today, but we'll be keeping everyone on track, and we will have these slides available for you posted with the recording after the presentation, and the recording will be up on HGIC's YouTube channel. So the first thing we're going to do is we're all going to introduce ourselves so you know who you're with today. So I think I've probably met most of you virtually or in person, but for those of you I haven't met yet, I'm Stephanie Pulley. I am the state coordinator for the Master Gardener program. I'm so proud to be it. I love working with all of our Master Gardener volunteers and being a part of the team. I started at HGIC in January of 2019, so I'm coming up early next year on my 3-year anniversary. I'm very excited about it. And we're all going to answer a question for you, and it's if we had a spirit plant, fungi, or insect, what would it be? And for mine, it's the plumeria, specifically the pink variety. Anybody who knows me knows I love pink. You can see I have a pink wall in my office, so I'm a big fan of these.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jean Birchfield. I also started in 2019 in November. I am the Master Gardener Management Specialist. I work with Steph at HGIC for the state office Master Gardener program. I chose a honeybee because I love desserts. I'll eat anything sweet. And that's pretty much it. I love just sort of being part of the team and helping out. That's how I see a honeybee. So thanks for coming, everybody.
Hi all, I'm John Tronfeld. I'm director at Home and Garden Information Center, and I'm an extension specialist in vegetables and fruits. I started with UME in 1989 as the urban gardening coordinator, and then I came out to HGIC in 1994. And that's me munching on some microgreens. I love working with soil and learning about soil. So my spirit animal is a ground beetle that spends all its life under and on top of the soil.
Ria, we can't hear you. Are you unmuted?
Sorry about that, guys.
Oh, there you are. Great.
I'm Ria Malloy. I started at the Home and Garden Information Center in 1994, 27 years ago. And I started out as an hourly horticulture consultant, and now I'm the program coordinator / business manager for Home and Garden and the Master Gardener program. I see myself as a live oak and a little bit southern in my roots, and kind of stand in the background, but have a good supporting role for the programs here at HGIC.
Yeah, hi, I'm Debbie Recigliano. I started at Home and Garden back in 1997 and I have had many roles over the years, but basically I think this is the best job ever. Right now I'm the lead horticulturalist, and I see myself as a sunflower. First of all, I love the word sunflower in Italian, which is girasole, which means that you turn to the sun. And I'm also tall. I love yellow. I feed bees and birds, and I just like to try to be sunny every day. So thank you.
Hi, Master Gardeners. I'm Krista Kerrigan. I've been with the Home and Garden Information Center since spring of 2017. I'm the coordinator of digital horticulture education. I contribute to answering questions on our Ask Extension service, and I also contribute to development of our blog, our website, and our social media. And my spirit plant would be an oak tree, and I would be supporting a lot of insects and caterpillars and birds.
Awesome. And next we have Dan Adler, who is our web support and video production specialist. He's not on at the moment. He actually just had a baby. He is a brand new father. And so he is taking that baby to the pediatrician as we speak, and he will be back momentarily for his portion of the presentation. So he can tell you a little bit more about himself then, but he is the expert behind all of our video production, and he's just incredible at what he does. So we're very happy to have him on our team too. And next is Miri.
Hi folks, Miri Tyleback here. I've spent my career in horticulture, but I joined in autumn of 2019 as a horticulture consultant. One of my primary tasks is answering the Ask Extension questions. And I think my spirit critter would be a dragonfly. I do love insects, but I find them one of the most compelling as far as they're just attractively colored and patterned. They're aerial acrobats. And there's just so many amazing things they do, and their life cycle is fascinating. So that is my creature.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name's Dave Clement. I've been with Extension since '89, and I'm a plant pathologist. So my kindred organism would be a morel, because I like to associate with trees.
Awesome. I think that's also a very favorite plant for most people. So that's very fitting. Excellent. So thank you all for the introductions. We're going to move into kind of the history of HGIC, how it got started, and also how the two teams work together with one another. So for this section, I am going to turn it over to John Tronfeld.
Thanks, Steph. First, I'd really like to thank Steph and Jean for putting this great event together. We're really excited to be connecting with Master Gardeners today. And I'm gonna just spend a little time telling you a little bit more about HGIC and the close partnership that Home and Garden Information Center has with the Maryland Master Gardener Program. The HGIC got started in 1990. And it was truly a pretty unique model among land-grant universities in the US. And it was started in part because of the growing number of home horticulture and IPM questions and requests that were coming to county and city extension offices. Maryland's population was undergoing rapid increase. And so the center was established as a centralizing resource unit to provide educational resources and information around community and residential horticulture and IPM. And at that time, there were only about 3 or 4 active Master Gardener programs in the state. There was no state coordinator for the program. There was no Master Gardener handbook. And so when the center was created, one of the specialist positions, that person also became the first state Master Gardener coordinator. So there was early recognition that these two programs were closely interconnected and that they could support each other's success and growth. So we operate in 4 big areas. You'll be learning a lot more about our large website from Ria and Debbie shortly. We answer questions directly from the public through Ask Extension. And I'll be talking a little bit more about that later in the presentation. We're very active on multiple social media platforms that we use for education, getting our message out to the largest audiences possible. And we're also here to support all other, UME volunteers, especially Master Gardeners and faculty and staff and extension offices throughout the state. So all of us that work in this wonderful area that we so love, with working with plants and insects, natural forces around us, we have the challenge of trying to keep up with the subject matter. And so where is spotted lanternfly this week? And what does the latest research tell us about the best ways to, prune arborvitae or to fertilize blueberries. So that is part of the fun, and it is really what makes this a life learning experience. But we also have to keep up with the latest and best ways to deliver our information. And that means adapting to and adopting new technologies. And the HGIC staff I think we're pretty proud of our role in extension in having stayed on the leading edge for educational technologies. And I know you all do the same thing in your county offices. In the past year and a half, we've all had to adapt and learn new ways of educating volunteers, MG coordinators, all of us. And a few examples, when we first started here at HGIC, and by the way, Dave Clement was the founding director for HGIC. He could tell you some stories. We had boxes of fact sheets in all hallways, just as the extension offices did. We used to fax fact sheets to clientele. And many of you know that for many years, from 1990 through 2014, we had an 800 number that people could call, and that's how we did direct consultations. But what we noticed early on from the early 90s through 2014 is that the number of calls was steadily declining, and the number of people who were looking for web resources was steadily increasing. So we're constantly adjusting, adapting as new technologies become available. The last thing I want to say on this slide is, thanks, Steph. I think it's really important to recognize that we're all working on some pretty key environmental and societal issues as extension faculty, staff, and volunteers, whether it's, environmental issues, food security, climate change, we are there. And I think that's really important to recognize. Next slide, please. So that brings us to how our work maps on very well to 4 of the 5 initiatives that our college, the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources, uses to guide all of our work. So all staff and faculty are working in these 5 areas. And we, HGIC, Master Gardener Program, we're working on improving water quality, dealing with storm water issues, teaching people about native plants. Grow It, Eat It is helping to increase food production, which addresses food insecurity. We're working in urban environments, and all of our work really addresses human health and environmental health. Next slide. So another shout out to Steph and Jean for doing such a fabulous job of bringing basic training online over the past 18 months, as well as continuing ed classes. I think a lot of us in this business, we like to interact with our clientele, with the public, and hopefully that's gonna become possible again before too long. But we also have really done a lot with the digital education tools. This is just a little setup I use for a hands-on part of a Zoom class. And I just really would like to encourage everybody to keep learning about these new methods that are available to us, practice them, share them. They are helping us reach wider audiences. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is the floor plan, folks, for the new building that is going to be built at Central Maryland Research and Education Center. That's where HGIC and the State Master Gardener Program are located, as well as the Baywise Landscaping Program, the Master Naturalist Program, and the Green Industry IPM Program. All those extension programs are here at CIMREC. A new building is being planned, and we're really excited. And as you can see on the lower left, there are 3 interconnected classrooms, which have a total capacity of about 125. So we'll be able to have all kinds of exciting programs and new opportunities in this building. Next slide, Steph. I want to finish my section here by pointing out and stressing how closely the two programs work together. We're cross-pollinating sister programs. That's how I like to think about it. HGIC faculty helped train master gardeners. Master gardeners use our resources in their programming and education, and master gardener coordinators have helped improve the HGIC website by writing new content. Master gardeners are the on-the-ground educators. You're referring clientele to HGIC resources. And at the same time, we send people to Ask a Master Gardener plant clinics. We've been very fortunate to have MG coordinators and volunteers contribute to our blog. That's really makes it much richer. And of course, there's a lot of social media cross-pollination that occurs between all of our programs, and it all helps to raise the visibility of what we are all doing in our counties, city offices. And finally, I would like to point out, if you haven't already seen it, each year we produce a unified annual report, HGIC and the State Master Gardener Program together, so that our funders, our constituents, our administrators can see how the two programs fit so well together. So that's it for my part this morning. And again, I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks, John. We just got one question for you. We do programs at Walter Reed where service personnel come from all over the US. I assume there are similar programs in other states that we can point them to for future questions.
Yes. I mean, people in any state can go to their Extension Service website and they'll find the Ask Extension button somewhere on that website. So most states are answering questions digitally the way we are. And of course, all states have an extension service with Master Gardener Program and home horticulture resources.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, great. So just a reminder, folks, if you do have questions throughout the presentation, we'll answer them at the end of each presentation, but you don't have to hold them until the end. So if you think of them while our speakers are talking, just put them into the Q&A box and we'll answer them all at the end. So at this point, we are going to switch over to do the tour of our brand new website for both HGIC and the Master Gardener Program. And this is following a larger transition with the whole University of Maryland College of Agriculture and Natural Resources. They redid the website overall, so we were fortunate enough to get to do a lot of great updates on our website as well. So we're going to have Debbie and Rhea give you a tour so you can figure out how the website can best serve your needs and the needs of the clients that we're serving in the community.
Okay, so Steph, how
Do you want me to share the slides for you?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
And then we'll need to know
Okay.
how to. Okay, thank you. So, Debbie and I are in the same office, so following COVID protocols, we both have our masks on. If you can't hear us or understand what we're saying, please let us know. Put it in the chat or raise your hand.
Yeah,
and Jean,
I'll let you know if we see
Okay.
anything.
Okay, so we want to help you find the gardening content on UME's new website so that you can go out into the public and answer questions. So I just wanted to let you know that Home and Garden Information Center's content is part of the vast University of Maryland Extension's website. We don't have our own dedicated website, but we're part of the extension organization. So the UME website is number 9 overall for all of University of Maryland websites. So it is very heavily visited. And as such, the new website is created with the user in mind. It's very uncluttered design, heavy with the images, with great quality images. And it's easy to navigate and search. It's mobile friendly, and it's optimized to meet University of Maryland's accessibility standards. Next step. So how would you find HGIC's homepage? Well, the first thing, I've got several ways to do it for you, suggestions. The first thing is if you go onto any search engine, put in home and garden, and then put the word Maryland in there. Whenever you're searching for HGI and looking for HGIC content, add the word Maryland into it, and that will give you the best chance of getting our content appear close to the top of the results. So that's how you get to the homepage from Google. Then once you're on any of the University of Maryland extensions pages, on this second navigation tab, look at programs. Home and Garden Information Center has its own link there, and that's how you would immediately get to our homepage from any page on Extension's website. Or alternatively, you can just type in home and garden into the search box, and you can see those things that show up there are the pages that have those 3 terms in them. So select the Home and Garden Information Center to get to our homepage. Once you've found our homepage, I highly recommend that you bookmark it so you can get to it very easily on your browser on your device. Okay, next. So then how do you find HGIC's gardening content from all of Extension's content? So from the University of Maryland Extension's homepage, this image on the left has the dark background. If you hover over that yard and garden icon, that is the portal to HGIC's gardening information. Another way to access that is from the menu on any of the UME websites. Click on the resources menu tab and then select yard and garden. And that will get you in the direction of all of Home and Garden Information Center's content. Excuse me. If you're not looking for specific information for gardening, but just want to browse, these resource categories are a really great place for you to start to look through all that University of Maryland Extension has to offer. And with that, I'll get Debbie to go next, and we want to use the live website stuff.
All right, so you should be able to share your screen now.
Oh, just share the screen. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, thanks, Rhea, for giving us kind of a broad view of the UME website. Now we just kind of want to drill down to the Home and Garden Information Center. This is obviously our homepage. Here's our little logo up here. And right underneath there is Explore a Program. And these headings right here are our main topic areas. This is pretty much where you're going to find all of the information that's contained in the HGIC website. And this is the About button. This is where you'll find information on the staff, and also this is where you'll find information on the annual report.
Hey Deb, one sec. It's the website is appearing like zoomed in for us, like kind of the half on anything to the right of the black-eyed Susan is cut off. Is it maybe halfway on your other screen or zoomed in a lot?
I'll move this over here. Is that better? Steph, is that better?
Not yet.
Let's see. I'm going to start to screen share again, and let's start
Okay.
this again. Okay.
Okay, is that better, everybody?
Yes, that's better. Thank y'all.
Okay, all right. So now, if you want to go back to, if you want to go to the State Master Gardener Program website, we have a link directly right here, and we repeat the main topic areas right here: food gardening, insects, garden, landscape. I'm going to go into this in detail in a little bit. Hot topics, these are areas that we change periodically. You know, that's pretty kind of self-explanatory, but you know, we like to keep folks up to date with, you know, pretty much timely topic areas. And John touched a little bit on Ask an Expert or Ask Extension. He's going to go into more detail a little later. Krista's going to go into the blog. I invite you to look at the Hgic newsletter. This is another very useful resource to keep in touch with us. We send it out quarterly with timely news, tips, events, and we do feature a Q&A. Oh, right here, you can just click right here to sign up. And, you know, if you have a little time, you can look at our previous newsletters. And again, I invite you to look at our little introduction video. It's pretty cute, and I think it's really well done. Thanks to Dan, who really does a great job, you know, with our video, as Steph had mentioned earlier. One important link that I want to bring to your attention is the link to the Home and Garden site map. You know, I don't want to say, I mean, you might not, you know, think to look down there, but I think this is an important site for master gardeners to know about, because say, for instance, you're at a plant clinic or you're out in the public and maybe you recall maybe seeing something on the Home and Garden information website, but you can't put your finger on it immediately. This is a good place to look. This is just an orderly list of all of our web pages. And it, you know, it's pretty long and vast, but when you're out there in the public, it might be the quickest way for you to find what you're looking for. So again, it's a, you know, important resource, again, because we do have so many web pages on our website. And this is just another way, another link to Ask Extension. These are our icons to our social media platforms. You know, I invite you to follow us on any of your favorite, whatever social media platform that you, you know, that you prefer. And then underneath here, this is again a quick way to go back to the UME main website, and these are the icons to the UME social media platform. So I'm just going to scroll back up here to go back to see what we find under these links. So these links will help you drill down a little bit further to find the information on our website. I'm going to click on food gardening. And we break the topic down a little bit further: herbs, fruits, and vegetables. We're going to go into fruits. And this is pretty much a landing page, and you'll be able to recognize the landing page because it has a red triangle in the photo. And these are all of the pages that we have on small fruits. Now I'm going to kind of drill down into an individual page. And after you kind of just confirm that you're on the page that you're looking for, something good to do is actually look up here on the left-hand side of the web page, because first of all, you can confirm that it's Home and Garden Information Center information. You might find something like Maryland vegetables under here, and Maryland vegetables, you know, because we are, again, as Rhea explained, housed underneath the UME main website, you could find mostly commercial information, not really geared to homeowners. But again, under related programs, if you get kind of lost on the website and you're wondering, is this, whose information is this? Just look under the related programs. The resource button here just also is a quick way to get back to the main resource tags of the UME website. And found in, basically, these links take you to an area where all of the information that's tagged with selection and care of fruit plants is found. The featured over here on the right pretty much designates that a page was decided that it might be something that folks will be looking for. So it brings it up to the top of this list. If you click on date, they are arranged by the order of the date they were created and title. Brings you into alphabetical order. So we're going to just scroll down through the web page, and on most of our pages, you're going to find something, a box that says related information, and these are just quick links back to, again, Home and Garden Information Center web pages that relate to the page that you're looking at. And on occasion, we do have information or an area called additional resources, and these links that we list in that category are links to either other extension offices or state organizations, but you know, links that we feel have very reputable and very important information on that topic. So I will now turn the presentation back over to Rhea. Okay, go back up to the top here. So you might be wondering, so how do you best use the website to find something specific, but you don't know what the name of it is, but you know you've maybe seen it before? So I want you to go up to this search box, and it says find an answer. And so start typing in something you might be looking for. So one thing that's really, really popular is weeds. I'll just type in the word weeds. And there are a couple of different things I want you to notice here. This first one says yard and garden and weeds in grade text, and that's what we call helper text. This, if it says yard and garden, that's a clue that it is HGIC's content. And this is going to take you to a one of these resource listings pages that Debbie was mentioning before, that has all of the individual pages that have that weeds as part of the content. Let me put that back in here again. If you come down here and it says weeds in pests, pests is not yard and garden. So pests is not content that belongs to HGIC. Weeds and weed ID, there may be great information in there, and that's great, but just know that it's not HGIC's if that's what you're looking for. But other results here that don't have that gray helper text,
this is going to take you to a specific page that has weed or weeds in the title. And if you click on all results, this is going to be all of the content that for all of extension that has the search term or terms somewhere in the body of that page. So I invite you to, hover over the link, and you will see in the lower left the URL, and sometimes that's helpful to tell you whose content that is. Sometimes it's not, but in this case, it might be best to go to one of those links up here with the helper text to find Home and Garden's content. So let's try native plants, a popular topic. Again, you see the helper text. So these are all of the categories of Home and Garden Information Center's content that has native plants in it. So you click on these to explore. And again, these that don't have the helper text go to specific pages that have your search term in the title. Now click on all results for native plants. And again, these are all of the pages that have that search term in somewhere in the body of it. Here's this site map that Debbie referred to. And looking down, here's these. So I'm hovering over this one, this fourth link here that says native plants. If you look down at the URL that shows in the lower left corner, it says, the extension URL, and then it says location and Charles County, Master Gardener and native plants. That's great. I'm sure it's got great information, but it's not Home and Garden's information. So if you are looking specifically for Charles County's native plant content, that's the link that you want to go to. If you are looking for the Home and Garden Information Center's content, you want to go to, you want to keep searching. But this, if you go to the bottom of this page, you'll see that there are more than 9 pages of links that have native plants somewhere in the body of it. So that's a lot to go through. But that gives you an idea of where you're going to go when you are looking at your search. All right, Debbie. Oh, no, the next thing. So the next thing I want to talk to you about is, I'm going to go back here and programs. And so let's see, can I go back to the, oh yeah, I can. So that's a search. So now, can you see the presentation here?
Yeah, we can see the slides now. Yep, just hit present.
Okay.
That's perfect. Looks
So
great.
I know that many of you like to have handouts when you go to do a talk or you have a program, and you're like, where the heck are HGIC's fact sheets? We want to print them out. Well, the publications tab on the top menu of Extension's website has publications for all of the other programs and locations within Extension, but it doesn't have HGIC's publications. We've chosen to create web pages with the pertinent content from those publications. Why have we done that? Here's the list. We want to comply with the accessibility standards that University of Maryland has in place. So, and PDFs don't comply. PDFs aren't directly searchable on the UME website, so it would take you down a rabbit hole if you were looking for a publication. Web pages are better optimized for search engines, and they're easy to share. If you're on a mobile device, it's much easier to view it on a phone or an iPad or anything else than a PDF. We can update that content in real time. If it's a PDF, it takes much more of our resources and man hours to update PDFs and then upload it to a website. Web pages are responsive and easily accessible, and web pages are easier to track with Google Analytics, which we use extensively. So with that, you may ask, well, then what the heck do I do if I want to have a handout? Here's what you do. I'm glad you asked. So how to print a page. So now how can I go back to my web page? Go back and share. Where's my web page?
Just hit escape out of the present mode.
Ah.
Yep, and then switch to your other tab.
So
Yep, perfect.
if you are on, let's pick a page here. There's a little tutorial on how to drill down. You can click trees and shrubs from here or any of these things, or you can come in here and we'll pick a page. Purchasing trees and shrubs, okay? Oh, all right. So you can see right up at the top here, I'm going to show you 3 ways that you can print a page. These are the share any or add to this icons. So if you pick this one, the print button, it's generating what it's going to look like, and you can print your page. It'll have the entire page here. If it's an image that has a lot of color in it and you really don't want to use up your ink, you can actually click on this to delete the content that you don't want to have printed. Then you can print it, save it as a PDF, or send it as an email. There are a couple of other things that you can do. All right, so that's option 1. Option 2 is to use your browser's print function. If you go to, I'm using Google Chrome here, and there's ellipses here, these 3 dots. You click on that, and here's a print button here. And you also notice that the shortcut is Control and plus the P key. So you print, click on print, and it will show you a preview of what your printed page will look like. I will point out here that for me, I think this is preferred because it has the UME logo in the top left. So you're branding the content that you're handing out to your clients. And it has the content there. And it also has some of these menu links that Debbie referred to that are on the page in the left-hand side, the resources, the found in, and related programs, the Home and Garden Information Center. So I'm going to cancel this out here. But if you click on your keyboard, the Control P, you'll get the exact same thing to print. And so I really hope that you will take the time to explore all that University of Maryland Extension has to offer on the new website. And we're really excited about this, the new website and the features that they've made available for all of us to use, and just explore it all. And remember that things may change over time. We're always trying to update our content and some of the features. And so look at it as a good thing. If you see a change, it's because we're trying to make it better. So we thank you, and hope you have some good questions for us at the end.
Awesome. Thank you both, much appreciated. I know that that update was a little confusing for folks, so it was really great to have that explanation and learn about all the ways that we can all use the website for our benefit, but also for our work as master gardeners and working in our communities. So we've gotten a couple chats about not being able to use the links in the chats. So the chat should let you highlight and copy things. If it doesn't, you should just be able to click the links. They turn blue, the ones that we put in the chat. You can just click it and then bookmark that page. But just in case anyone was worried, we are going to share the PDF of our presentation along with the recording, and that'll have the links in it so that everybody is able to click on it themselves. Okay. So with that said, we are going to be on a break for a little bit. We're going to go ahead and take a 10-minute break. And so I'm going to put that up on the screen just so everyone knows. So it's now 12:48, so we'll be back at 12:58. And when we return from break, we're going to hear from John about how to use Ask Extension. So we'll see everyone again soon. All right, so at this point, we're going to welcome back John Tronfeld, and he's going to talk to us about how not only the public can use Ask Extension to get their gardening questions answered, but how it can also be a resource of information for you as a master gardener. So with that, I'll turn it over to John. And oh, John, you need me to make you a co-host.
Yeah.
Screen share. Okay. Oh, sorry, I accidentally made you an attendee. I'll have to change you back. Okay, everything looks great. Except that you're muted. If you're talking, we can't hear you.
Sorry about that, folks.
There you are. Perfect.
All right, we're back.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about Ask Extension, and anybody in Maryland, Washington, D.C., and now even some folks in West Virginia can send questions to us 24/7. And those questions usually include photos, which is very helpful. And we answer those questions within 48 hours. So basically, on the top of any UME webpage, you'll see in the taskbar, Ask Extension, you can get to the form for asking a question that way. Also, you can see the icon that is on the HCIC homepage for Ask Extension. And below it, it says, get answers from our team of Maryland certified professional horticulturists, extension faculty, and master gardeners. So that's something new in 2021. we had a 42% increase in the number of questions that were sent in through Ask Extension in 2020. And so we were able to enlist the support and help of a number of Master Gardener coordinators and Master Gardeners. And that has been so helpful in 2021. And I hope they will continue with us next year to answer these questions. So essentially, I would imagine a lot of people on the Zoom today have sent questions through Ask Extension. This is what the submission form looks like. People can decide whether they want the question to be public or private. If it's public, it will appear, both the question and the answer, on the national website for Ask Extension, which I'll show you in the next slide or two. And on the submission form page, people learn that we're only taking questions from Maryland and DC. There's also a nice tips sheet for how to take a good photo, which is so important. You know, this isn't a plant clinic, in-person plant clinic where we can actually talk to people and see their plants and their insects. So we're a little challenged in that way. So photos, if they are submitted, really need to be good quality. We ask people to, you know, give their question a title, give us as much information as possible. And these are some of the tips that are on that photo tips page. So we just suggest to people that they take multiple photos and then choose the best photo, take photos from different angles, make sure the lighting is good. It's also really helpful to provide a size comparison object, like in the lower right here, a US penny next to the insect. And I'm sure you all have been frustrated as well. I'm sorry, I had my video off too. By blurry photos of plants or insects. It's just, you know, we basically have to go back and say, sorry, we can't help you until you send us a better photo. Now, this is what the National Ask Extension webpage looks like. And I wanted you to see it because you can search this database. It includes all the questions submitted throughout the United States. The drawback with this system right now is that we cannot filter by state. So if you type in tomato or, you know, tomato problems, you'll see the questions and answers that have been most recently submitted from anywhere in the country. However, I would say it's still useful to use this as a tool for seeing what's going on. You know, at a particular time of year, if you work at a plant clinic or if you're interested in a particular topic, it's a good way to see how those questions are being handled. And because Maryland is one of the top 2 or 3 states in the country answering home horticulture and IPM questions, there's a good chance that for any given topic you may search on, you will be seeing Maryland questions and answers. And we are gently pushing the folks at e-extension who oversee this web platform to add a state filter. It would be, you know, extra helpful to us, and I think for training purposes as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing now, and I'm gonna turn it over to Krista Kerrigan to talk about the blog.
John, we actually had 2 questions if you're able to
Okay.
take them. Okay, great. The first, well, I guess there's 3. One is a 2-part question. And the first one I'm actually so excited about. One of our guests said that I have many neighbors who want to replace their lawns with native plants that are good substitutes for grass. Can you develop a resource of native plants that grow 3 to 4 inches tall or can be mowed to that height that will tolerate moderate foot traffic? We have many ticks and many people who do not want meadows as replacements.
Yeah, we do have a ground covers page that includes native ground covers, but we'll definitely review that specific request and see if we can beef it up.
Excellent. And the next one related is one of the plants I'm recommending as a turf grass replacement is many of our native violets. Yet you have them listed under weeds, and they're pointing out that that's a little old school.
Noted.
All right. The next one is how can we volunteer with Ask Extension?
Yeah, you can send me an email. We're in particular looking for folks that feel confident in maybe some weed ID and plant ID and plant diagnostic skills. So that would be especially useful. But if you're interested, please just send me an email, johnt@umd.edu.
Awesome. And we'll put John's email in the chat as well. All right, great. Thanks, John. So at this point, I will turn it over to Krista so that she can talk to you about the Maryland Grows blog.
Great, thanks, Steph. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And you should see the, do you see the blog?
Yeah, we see the slides.
Okay.
Yeah, looks good.
Yeah, thanks. So again, my name is Krista Kerrigan, and I want to give an introduction to our Maryland Grows blog. I co-manage production of the blog along with my colleague, Dan Adler, who's also going to be speaking a little bit later. The blog is essentially a companion website to the HGIC website, and it's written more or less in the format of a journal. And we publish news stories on the blog about 1 to 2 times per week during the growing season. And Debbie shared when she showed the overview of the homepage how you can access the blog from there by clicking on the big green button in the center of the homepage, but you can also type in into your favorite web browser this address, marylandgrows.umd.edu, and that'll take you directly to the blog page. And then once you get onto the blog homepage, I wanted to just point out on the right-hand side, if you scroll down a little ways, there's a section that says follow the blog via email, and you can add your email address in there, and then that means you're subscribed to the blog, and every time we publish a new story, you'll get an announcement directly in your email, and that way you'll just get an automatic notice once there's new content up on the website. So it's a really great way to stay up to date with our blog. We currently have over 900 subscribers, so probably some of you are already subscribed, which is great. But if you haven't, I really encourage you to check that out and subscribe if you wish to follow it that way. So I'm going to go now actually to the live blog site. Steph, can you see that? Live? Okay. So we're on the live site now, marylandgrows.umd.edu. And I just wanted to give some background. So we launched Maryland Grows in 2017. And some master gardeners probably remember that HGIC used to have a blog called Grow It, Eat It, which was focused entirely on food gardening content. And when we started Maryland Grows, we incorporated all of that food gardening content into this blog. So you'll still find a lot of food gardening information here. But we brought in the scope of Maryland Grows to encompass many more topics in horticulture. So we now have a great core team of authors affiliated with Extension who contribute not only on food gardening, but also we have a great monthly series on pollinators and pollination. We cover invasive species, native plants, general good horticulture practices, and answers to common questions. So pretty much anything that you'll encounter in home gardening, we cover it here on Maryland Grows. The main difference of the blog compared to the website, HGIC website, is that the information we publish here is more timely and seasonal in nature. Through the growing season. And then also the blog stories really bring in more of a personal perspective from gardeners. So things that people are trying out, things that might be challenges or problems, and different ways that gardeners are trying to overcome issues in the home garden. So it's a kind of more, gives a more personal feel. And then I wanted to just show different ways you can move about the blog and find content here. So there's a search box right up at the top. So it functions just like any other website. You can put in, let's do figs if we want to look for information on that. And then you can see any of the stories that are published on figs, for example. Our content is also grouped into these 3 categories. So you can click through on any of these if you want to view content that way. You could also go into the archives here on the right. For example, if you wanted to go back and see maybe what was published in September a year ago, that's another way that you can explore the content. Then going further down, the logos on the right-hand side are clickable. So you can click here to go back to the Home and Garden Information Center homepage. You can click here to submit questions on Ask Extension. And then here again is where you would subscribe by adding in your email address if you wish. And then we also have keyword tags associated with all of the stories. So if you wanted to explore by any of the keywords, for example, insects, will take you over to any articles that contain that keyword. So those are just, all of these tools on the right are basically different ways that you can move about the content that we have. So again, the blog is really another great resource for you in conjunction with the Hgic website. And if you're not already following the blog, I really encourage you to do so. It's a great way to keep adding to your own continuing education as master gardeners. And you can also share the stories and content with any clients that have questions as well. That's the basics of it, and I'll turn it back to you, Steph.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Krista. We do have some comments and questions. So we did have a note that turf grass replacement would be a great blog topic. And Noreen from Anne Arundel County shared that at their library workshops, they've been sharing the Maryland Grows blog with their audience, telling friends and neighbors about it as well. So that was a great comment. Thanks, Noreen, for that.
Thank you.
The next one is, does the Ask Extension search include the Maryland Grows articles?
It does not. It's separate. They're separate platforms right now. So you have to search on each separate site. We have looked into potentially building the blog into the UME's main website at some point, which we possibly might do in the future, but right now they're 2 separate systems.
Okay.
In some of the pages on the Hgic website, we have some links over to blog articles and sections of the blog. But the search functions are separate.
Awesome. Thank you for that. All right. So that is all we have for the Q&A for the blog. Thanks, Krista. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.
All right, so next we're going to have a little bit of a fun section. We're going to meet one of our consultants, Mary Tyleback, who's just joined our team full-time. We're so excited to have her. So she's going to do a fun Crimes Against Horticulture section with us right now, which she is just fantastic at. So with that, Mary, would you like to share your own screen, or would you like me to share?
Yeah.
You got it. Awesome. Looks perfect. Thanks.
Okay. This is a little bit of just a break for amusement, and of course, depending on your viewpoint, also probably frustration and puzzlement and dismay as to the choices we make when we're working with plants, but also to help make it into a little bit of a learning experience. So I'm not going to read through all of the text on these images because with this session being recorded, you can go back and review it. So that would take too much time, but the images I've included are fairly local from an arrangement of varied sources, residences, public gardens, commercial plantings, and just illustrating some of the unfortunate choices that we humans sometimes make in our care of plants, some which we should be able to sort of predict and mitigate, and some you may come into, especially if a client at a clinic or something is asking you about an established plant. You may have to approach after the fact. But these are just some starter examples of some tree growth that is astonishingly advanced. And I do wonder sometimes how some of these plants do survive as long as they do. It is impressive, definitely something I respect about them. But one tip I have for especially less experienced folks who are counseling residents about their gardening troubles is if you're trying to puzzle out a diagnosis and you don't have the whole picture, especially if we didn't see these images and someone was showing you images of a tree canopy in decline, this situation might not necessarily come to mind. But follow the water, start with the root system, how the roots are accessing water, and follow the water's path up the plant to see if there's an interruption, damage, anything that's impeding that water flow. And that can usually help you narrow down a diagnosis when you're not getting all the information right off the bat. So here's another example of plants can certainly, especially woodies, because that's the background I'm strongest in, have the ability to deal with, especially when nature throws at them, obstacles to growth. That doesn't mean they should. So of course, site selection is very important and aftercare is equally important. So here's a couple of unfortunate examples of a commercial planting. I believe this was a crabapple that has had some decor not removed after the season. And over time, as you probably very well know, this is going to cause problems with the tree's growth, is completely avoidable and something that should be probably not done to begin with, but addressed as soon as possible. And here's another example of tree tie that was left in place for too long. And this crepe myrtle eagerly grew right through the tree tie. It's something you can't really fix at this point, but something to be aware of if, say, this trunk runs into trouble in the future. And of course, location. And I've included images, and I like documenting these things when I see them going hiking, of plants in what would normally be horticulturally highly unsuitable conditions. They will, of course, make do, and they are providing ecosystem services until the location prevents them from surviving to their full lifespan. But it's, again, something that should be avoided. Example of a river birch that was planted, I kid you not, like 3 feet from the building wall. An alleyway in Annapolis that has a full size hornbeam. I don't know where those roots are finding the nourishment and the oxygen they need. And then a ginkgo next to a relatively new townhouse development that, as anyone who knows ginkgos know, they're going to take a while to get full size, but when they do, this is a very unsuitable location for it. But again, it's not all doom and gloom if you go into these situations with the knowledge that the tree will still provide a number of benefits while it lasts, but to be aware of what to look out for in the case of the building, or just in the case of the plant's health. Long term, you're not going to get that useful life out of the plant. And again, plants don't read the books, so take with a grain of salt the recommendations in reference books and catalogs, and take your cues from nature, especially if you're counseling people on plant selection for a difficult site. We certainly want to go with the ideal because we're pampering the plants and we want to get the most out of them as far as aesthetics. But knowing what they'll tolerate can still be useful. So just here's a handful of examples. This is certainly not something I would have advised someone to plant the equivalent of a low bush blueberry in what's basically a crack in the sidewalk. But here in the wild, 60 odd or so feet above the Potomac River, these plants are making out just fine and certainly decorative. In other words, another high heat, high reflected heat, exposed to a lot of wind, dependent solely on rainwater. This is a button bush, glorious fall color, by the way, in a little puddle, in a divot in a stone, in a boulder, also high above the Potomac River itself. Even when the river floods, it's not getting this high. And this plant is doing spectacularly. This is an eastern red cedar. I captioned it "no soil, no problem," because I don't know what soil is in whatever crevices this boulder has developed, but you wouldn't think it would support a tree of this size. And yet it's still doing quite well. And as far as wildlife is concerned, is perfectly functional. And this is admittedly a poor picture, but it serves to illustrate another example of taking your cues from nature. We see a lot of questions about Eastern Arborvitae in particular, like green giant, or excuse me, emerald green, very commonly put in by builders, commonly used as an evergreen screen. But observing where they're going to grow, where they decide to grow in the wild is useful. This plant, I can tell you, is in Western Maryland. It is above a gully on a rock face. So you can see there's some fairly consistent moisture due to the moss, but it's very well drained. And this happens to be a cooler environment. So when we site them in suburban, compacted, poorly drained soils, clay-based or otherwise, it's setting them up for stress. This is a little more amusement than parallels with nature, but just a handful of examples of questionable choices or things that should be corrected as soon as they're noticed. This actually was an extension query about their maple tree in decline. They didn't actually mention the landscape fabric, and thankfully without the mulch having been up there and it was visible in the photo, looking at the base of a tree can be very informative as to anything causing a potential problem that'll affect the entire canopy. This is in a landscape maintained by commercial landscapers. And again, without mulch here, this is noticeable, but with mulch, it would have been quite hidden. A surface root that has been repeatedly run over with edging equipment. Fortunately, that tree was a Bradford pear, so there are other issues there. And knowing your plants throughout the seasons can be helpful. This would normally be a great choice because it's very urban condition tolerant, urban stress tolerant. This is an Osage orange. And they are dioecious though, they're male and female flowered trees. This is a female flowered tree because I happened to view this tree in the autumn and there were damaging size seed pods littering the soil underneath it. So perhaps a good choice for a lot of reasons, but not right there. And you can also see, of course, as is common with urban trees, it hardly has limited root space. A poor hosta, like everything's wrong in this image. It's in the crosshairs of a drain pipe, and yet it's also not irrigated. There's no irrigation. This is a mini golf course. It's in full sun. It's in poor soil. It's got landscaping fabric. I don't know about near it, or under it, but certainly near it. Everything about that, except the fact that deer aren't running through there, is of course set up for that poor plant. And I find this entertaining. I've seen this on multiple occasions. This is green, emerald green, Eastern Arborvitae, next to presumably green giant or a Western Arborvitae. Same thing here, although the Western's off screen a little, in deer country. This is next to Greenbelt Park. This is near Shenandoah. You can clearly see the preference the deer have for the Eastern, and they really, when they have enough food sources, don't prefer the Western. It's not foolproof, but it's another good cue that unless deer pressures are exceptional, that would be a better plant choice if you have the room. These are a little less commentary, a little more just shaking your head. Surface roots under trees. Don't grow turf under shade trees for a number of reasons, but one is that when the compacted soil from that foot traffic, it's going to make those roots grow more shallowly. They're more vulnerable then to being injured by mowing equipment and herbicides. In this case, mowing equipment. These are all calloused and they're going to start decaying. This is an advanced decay, which makes for sort of an interesting natural mini golf course at that point. It can be kind of challenging and entertaining, but certainly not good for tree health. This is just a typical example of a sad Kwanzaa cherry, sort of unintentional bonsai in a managed landscape in a like multifamily housing neighborhood. And the same thing with the red bud. That is an arborist's nightmare. It's a little hard to tell from a static image, but the branching is horrific. And the tree would be better, longer lived and performing better if it had been cared for at a younger age. And this, I find amusing, I call this a tea tree, because this is a mature oak under power lines, and you can predictably find a lot of horticultural atrocities under power lines. Still serving great ecosystems functions though, so certainly I would not, and I'm not a utility worker, but I otherwise would not cut that down, but not the best choice. I don't know which came first, the tree or the utility lines. And this is a reminder to, it helps to be very familiar with the plants and their seasonal attributes in making a diagnosis, both in terms of season and in terms of plant age. I'll give you the answers to these three, but if someone came up with a photo, and I'm sorry, this is a little blurry, but you can still make out the characteristics of these sort of nodules in this boxwood. You might think, especially if there wasn't a photo and they describe it like that, you might think maybe psyllid damage cupping the leaves, or maybe this is a gall. But in fact, this is actually just boxwood fruit. It's not seen very often. I honestly don't know the exact reasons, maybe just for pollination or something to do with how fertile the individual variety is. And since plants are usually maintained with pruning, that may even exclude a lot of fruit just by being trimmed off. So this is just boxwood fruit, and this is perfectly normal. I actually find the little bluish blush a little attractive. This is, say, someone moved into a new property or encounters a plant walking that they would like identified, especially if it's growing in a more wooded area and it's kind of young. You would certainly be forgiven for going immediately to burning bush, winged euonymus, for these ridges on the bark. But knowing a little more about the ID characteristics and considering the environment, especially, it's not evident from this picture, but if you see it growing as maybe a single stem, what looks like a sapling, this is a young sweet gum, and they are they can develop very prominent ridges on their bark when they're this age. And finally, we have a Spirea. This happens to be in a pot, but let's say it was recently planted in the ground. A good first guess would be that this looks like maybe a nutrient issue, or the roots weren't establishing well, and therefore the foliage is getting maybe starved of nutrients or is starting to decline. Change of color is usually a good sign of decline. But in this particular case, it does help to know how nurseries tend to produce their stock, which is with plants that are multiple stemmed, usually shrubs. They sometimes will start multiple cuttings in each pot. And in this case, this is just human error, and this is a different cultivar that got mixed in with the green leaf cultivar. So this is a perfectly healthy plant. And in this case, it's a bonus, it's 2 for 1. And again, I'm not going to go through these individually, but because you can read through these, but one thing I consider a crime, so to speak, in horticulture is, and this can be blamed on commercial practices just as well, but folks who plant a lot of the same, within the same plant palette. We see a lot of cherry laurel, we see a lot of azaleas, boxwoods, the Arborvitae I mentioned earlier, euonymus. Usually they would be non-natives that we're discussing. So they're going to get a lot of predictably the same problems, and that can be useful because it's easy to know what the go-to solution is, but avoiding them in the first place is preferable. So not only for aesthetics and environmental purposes, if you go with native species, would it be better to diversify, but you're also going to have less likely to deal with an outbreak the more diverse the landscape is. So these are just some suggestions. They do happen to be largely non-native because for homeowners who have no preference or are gonna select a non-native for a non-native anyway, these at least will diversify the palette a little bit. I do consider some of them a little risky with our weather conditions. It is zone pushing, so to speak, but given climate change, that may not be as large of an issue in the future as it would be 10 years ago. So, and again, this is just a sampler, and there are plenty of native species that would probably be even better choices, but these are less well known, which is why I highlighted them. And again, issues with finding them in the nursery trade may be difficult now, but that's going to be changing as the wholesalers update their plant palette and offerings. So, and you can see how some of these will serve similar functions to what's currently being used. I will grant you that a purple-leaved native plant may not sustain foliage-feeding insects as well as the green. But again, it's better than a barberry. It's better than a Japanese maple. At least pollinators will and seed eaters will still get some use out of these plants. And last but not least, just sometimes just be entertained by what you're presented with, or make lemonade out of lemons. This is an example I love. This was a colleague of mine years ago who usually had debris in the back of his pickup truck, including soil, because he brought plants home. And the sunflower planted itself and was not cared for, certainly not by the person who owned the truck. I think maybe a passerby may have put a spare water bottle on it now and then, but and it bloomed. It's just fantastic, nature finds a way. And this is an example. We coach people not to treat tree wounds because it can impede, don't really heal, but impede sealing and compartmentalization and so forth. But if you're going to do something, have fun with it. This tree I've observed for years has been painted right by the ag fields down in Beltsville. And this I find amusing, of just, if you try a plant and it dies, or especially if the same thing dies in the same spot for multiple tries, try something different. But at the very least, you can turn it into lawn art in the meantime. So that is what I have. And if anyone has any questions about anything I highlighted, I'm happy to answer.
Miri, that was super fun as always. I love when you do that for our office. So I'm really excited that we were able to share that with volunteers as well. And what we did get a question, actually, folks are really interested in a recommended list of plants for variety, since you were mentioning kind of including more variety in the landscape.
I think the list for natives candidates is so extensive. I mean, it's best to start narrowing it down by site conditions is how I present it to people asking me for plant ideas. So the usual sun exposure, soil conditions, room to grow. Deer is usually on my top 5 list, asking if someone has deer browsing issues. It's a pretty pervasive problem and it's probably going to get worse, especially with native species. And then whittling it down from there, because the list, if someone prefers native species, is huge. With non-natives, there's still a lot of well-behaved non-native plants that are underused. I could throw out a few names, but it's going to depend on availability too. But with more interest in natives, there are more native nurseries that are easier to access now, either mail order or in person. So that will help sort of snowball the availability for people.
Yeah, so this guest was looking for ones that you mentioned today, so maybe you could just type a few into the chat box during our next session. Okay, awesome. And then you've also got a shout out, Mary. Kathy Daniel says thank you for answering all of her many questions recently.
You're welcome.
I'm assuming that's through Ask Extension. So awesome. All right, great. Thanks, Mary, so much. That was super fun, as always. So next we're going to turn it over to our videographer extraordinaire, Dan Adler. He is with us. Dan, would you like to share your own slides or do you want me to share them?
Yeah, I can share from here.
Okay, perfect. We're all set. I need to make you a co-host though. Okay, should be
Share screen.
ready now.
Okay, one sec. Screen 1. All right. Can you see my screen? It should look like YouTube.
Yeah, looks great.
Cool. So yeah, the first thing I'm going to do is kind of introduce our YouTube channel, which is kind of our repository of all the video content that we've created for the most part, and show you how it's organized and how to search and find videos. If you want to see if we have a video on a certain topic and you want to email it to somebody or show it to somebody in a presentation or something, this is how you can find content. So the URL is youtube.com/user/UMDHGIC. If you don't want to remember that, just go to YouTube and you can search UMDHGIC and you'll find it pretty easily. And so once you're on our channel homepage, this is what it should look like for you. It's got our opening video that I think you may have seen earlier in this presentation. And at the top, just to show everybody what we're about. But after that, as you scroll down the page, we've got our videos organized into topics and categories, fairly analogous to how they are on the HGIC page. So this first row is playlists of videos about fruit growing topics. So this is a playlist about fruits. There's 12 videos in there. This is about herbs. This is about vegetables. So if I clicked on this fruits one, it's gonna start playing the first one in the category, but all of the other fruits content we have is here and you can click on them to play them. So I'm gonna hit the back button and go back to the home page. So yeah, we have food growing topics, yard and garden topics. Some of these rows are longer than what will show on your particular screen. So if there's this little next button and it'll expand the rest of them. So yard and garden topics, sustainable gardening topics. And then we have this one with other content, and these are all kind of interesting. This one of many videos, these are things that we, maybe a year or two ago, we were sharing a lot on social media, like Instagram and Facebook, but we put them all here too. These are, they don't have any spoken word, but they're kind of animated with subtitles and things, and they're all about 60 seconds long. So all 38 of the ones that we've created are in there. And I'll go back. We did have a chunk of our content professionally translated into Spanish for subtitles. So if you have a Spanish speaking clientele, you can tell them that we do have content here. And the way that I have it on mute right now, but so you still hear English speaking, but if you turn on the subtitles with the CC button, it will, if they have their browser set to, oh, my language is Spanish, it should automatically show them the Spanish, but if they need to change it, there it is switched to Spanish, and then you should see these Spanish translated. So this is a group of 18 videos that we felt were kind of the most important or popular ones that we got professionally translated. However, YouTube automatically translates stuff, so with a machine learning and stuff, and it's not as good as professional, but every single video does have a Spanish translation in the subtitles. It just, this group is going to have professionally done ones. The other ones might have a lot of errors in them. This one category is Garden of Whedon. This is, you may have seen the Harford County Joyce Browning. She does a ton of awesome videos, and she posted them on the Harford County Facebook page, but we just take them and also place them here, so they're all here. We have webinars, so we have them webinars that were created for Master Gardeners, so the recordings are found on this playlist on the right. It says UMU webinars for Master Gardeners. We also have a few webinars that we felt were appropriate for general non-MG audiences as well, so we say general audiences. That's about what we've categorized. We have one more thing that says popular uploads. So if you want to see what people are or what has been searched for a lot, these are kind of our top viewed videos. So these are just kind of hot topics. So that's how you can kind of find things in categorization. But if you want to find something specific and you're like, hey, I wonder if HGIC has a topic on squash vine borer, and you might want to, you can browse through our categories, but there's a search function that searches just our particular channel. So it's not this big search bar at the top that searches all of YouTube, but if once you're on our channel and you go to this magnifying glass search, you can search specifically our channel. So let's see if we have something about that. Yep, so we have several things that this one specifically about squash vine borer. This one is not a great search result, but it's about squash bugs. So it's a decent search, and it will find things where hopefully squash vine borer and stuff are mentioned. So that's generally how you use our YouTube channel to find content on it. We're always adding stuff occasionally, especially Joyce Browning. So things are getting added, but things will always be there. So that's our YouTube channel. We do accept occasionally videos from other master gardeners or subject matter experts. So if you have the ambition to make some videos, it would be great to collaborate. We're always interested in collaborating or giving tips on how to put together videos. One thing you probably want to do is go on our YouTube channel and make sure that we haven't covered it yet, or if we have, maybe you have a different wrinkle to it or something before you spend a lot of time replicating information in videos that we already have. So if you've got something special, then you can contact us and see if you could make something. We do have kind of a standard of quality we want to keep up, so we would probably discuss how you would want to produce it and such. But yeah, we're always open to those conversations. So I will go to the present. So I have some tips for good ways for you to capture photos or video content that you're going to share on your own social media or your website pages and things like that, or things that you're going to send to us. We tell this to everybody. So one main thing is if you're shooting a video or a photo, we really appreciate it. At least when we're posting things, we like horizontal. If turn your phone horizontal, for the most part, most places that you want to post something online or social media, it fills up the screen better if it's a horizontal one. Save for certain apps like Snapchat, Instagram stories, and other ones that are often vertical images. So the tip from me is to think about where this image or video is going to go, and generally how do you see other people creating these images. One thing, if somebody sends us pictures that they've taken, and we're gonna put it on one of our Maryland Grows blog posts, and they're all vertical images, those things like really make you have to scroll far to see things, whereas a horizontal is going to fill up the area well but not take a lot of vertical space. So for the most part, we like horizontal, unless you can't back up far enough and you're taking a picture of a tall tree, then it makes sense to do vertical, but when in doubt, go horizontal. If you're taking a picture of a plant or anything, a subject matter, I mean, basic photography idea is try to not have bright lights coming at you from the other side of the subject. This makes it so usually when you're taking a photo on your phone and it's in auto mode, auto exposure, it's going to kind of average out the brightness of the whole frame, and the bright of the wind in this example, the window is making the whole thing average up bright, so it makes the subject darker and you can't see it very well. So this is a great example of how to do it. This person just probably rotated their whole setup and probably went to the other side, so the window is at their back and their darker room is in the background, and
Yes,
now
that
we got
was
really
me.
good
That's exactly
light.
what I did.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a great example. So the bright light source coming from behind you is often great. If it's in front of you coming from behind the subject, that can be tough. Can't always get it that way, but this is what to look out for if you can. In general, if you're gonna do a video and you don't have, like, say, somebody filming for you with a steady hand, if you're gonna film something going on a table, or you speaking yourself on camera, try to get a tripod. There you can find things really cheap on Amazon that hold phones for 15 bucks or around there. It's always more professional to have a fairly steady shot or 100% steady shot if you can, if it's practical on what you're doing. It just makes things, seem more like you're a pro, compared to just somebody doing something off the cuff for social media for funsies or something like that. And it just lets people see your subject better. And if you're doing video and you're recording your voice while you're speaking, just keep in mind to try to minimize room noise or noise in your area. Wherever possible, try to plan out and find a place where it's quiet. If that means change the time of day or going to a different location, that's always something great to keep in mind. If you're inside, it's great to temporarily turn off your air conditioner or heat. Find a room that has less echo. So you, a lot of times that can be like a bedroom or even like a living room that has carpeting or lots of rugs and lots of furniture, these things, the soft like fabrics and foam and things really absorbs reflections of sound. If you're in a room that's mostly just flat walls and not a whole lot else going on, then you get a lot of room echo, and that becomes very noticeable. If you're outside, try to pick a time. If the weather's bad and it's really windy, try to just pick a different time when that settles down. Try to pick a location that's away from highways. And if it is loud, do your best to stay closer to whatever the microphone is. If you're filming on a camcorder or a phone, just try not to make it a real long shot where the phone's 25 feet away from you. Try to set it up so you're closer than maybe you think you would have preferred, because then your voice is louder in comparison to the background noise when you're closer. And for images in general, try to avoid using these filters that Instagram and a lot of phone apps have that kind of tint the colors and such, because you really want to show an accurate representation of your subject matter, especially when we're dealing with plants and their types of colors and stuff like that is pretty important. So we're not trying to make art so much, I think, with a lot of what we do. We're trying to show specifics and teach people. That might be it for me. Yep, and that is it for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan. There was a question that came in the chat while we were talking. I went ahead and answered it, but it was if you have an educational video that you feel like does fill a topic that we need covered on HGIC's YouTube channel, what's the process for getting that posted on HGIC? So I've put my email in the answer to that. Y'all can see all the answers to the questions. Just email me and I'll get it connected with the folks at HGIC, and we'll have our consultants kind of review it and vet it to make sure that it agrees with all the latest research and information that we have available for that topic. And then we can get it posted on HGIC's YouTube channel. All right, awesome. Thanks, Dan. That was super helpful.
Sure.
All right, folks, so we're going to go ahead and take just a quick 5-minute break. And then to finish out our presentation for today, we're going to have Dave talking about common questions that we get to our Ask Extension service. And if you were to get a question like that, how would you go about diagnosing it? So we'll start that in 5 minutes. It's 1:49, so we'll be back at 1:54.
All right, so just want to say that this is sort of a team effort that we do every day here at Home and Garden. So I rely on Krista and Miri and Chris and Marion and assorted other folks. And as John pointed out, now we have master gardeners helping us as well. So, you know, it's a process really where, you know, you can't be an expert in everything. So we kind of have all of our own strengths, and we all sort of go through and try to discuss the questions every morning, or at least, and then throughout the day, other things come up. So it's an ongoing process, and, you know, at various times of the year, things change. So I just put in some fall questions here. Right now, a lot of turf grass questions, a lot of landscape, you know, questions as well, but a lot of turf grass, establishment questions, and alongside those, a lot of turf grass weeds. Believe it or not, we get a lot of spider identifications this time of year, a lot of spider webs, a lot of things out there, you know, running around, but spiders are really popular right now, especially when you wake up in the morning, you walk through a few of them. We have a lot of mushrooms, especially now that we've had some moisture, we've had some rainfall. So we've got a lot of mushroom, toadstools, whatever you want to call them, coming up. We also have some of the decay fungi and things like that popping up there. In the landscape, we have a lot of boxwoods as well as dogwoods, but a lot of boxwood questions. We have various shrubs and so forth, but we just get numerous questions this time of year, especially as things start to go dormant, or if it's the end of the season. So a lot of things are happening with plants that essentially, if they're deciduous plants or if they're evergreen plants, depending on the questions, what's going on with them. What are some of the changes and so forth. That brings up some of the diseases. There's powdery mildews. There's all sorts of leaf spots and things like that right now this time of year that are sort of end of the season things. So the good news is most of the time that's not going to hurt the health of the plant for next year. It's just at the end of the season. So things are getting ready to basically get ready for fall or early winter. A lot of people plant this time of year, which is great. Fall is for planting. So, people are putting in plants. They're asking questions about landscaping choices. Sometimes they want us to design their landscape. That's a little more involved than really what we have time for most of the time. But they're asking us questions about natives and, other choices for pollinators, all sorts of, ideas out there if they're along a waterway or so forth, or on the shore, all of those things. A lot of weed questions and things like that too. So anyway, just a lot of different things out there right now that are happening. It's a little different in the spring because they're talking about planting and other things, but this time of the year they're talking about a lot of the end of the season things. Some of them, are important depending on their location. So as a master gardener, really, or as anybody, it really pays to sort of begin somewhere. And I usually like to begin with knowing the plant material. If you can identify the plant material if they're, especially if they're showing you a picture of something and they're asking you what's wrong with it, or if they're asking you maybe a particular, what's this insect on it, or what's this disease, if you know the name of the plant or the host, it really does help to narrow some of that down, because then you can either Google it, or you can go to our literature like at Home and Garden and search on it and so forth. So again, it gives you a starting place, and that's important. It's not as hard as you think it is, because a lot of times people do plant the same old things, and that's what Miri was getting at before as far as diversification. But we get the same old, plants essentially planted in multiple locations and landscapes. So you see a lot of problems, the same problems on similar plants, all across the state. Also deciding, what's important in the picture, if they're giving you a picture or if they're giving you a description of what the most important symptoms are, or the signs, if it's a disease. Just figuring out what are they actually seeing? What are they looking at? What are they what's most important to them, in other words? That's a little different. Sometimes we may spot different things depending on what we're looking at. So it's always good to have them identify what their problem is and what their question is, and trying to decide that, at first, and then maybe moving on to maybe other suggestions. When you're done with that, maybe you might suggest other things they can do with that plant, or, possibly other problems they may anticipate. So timing is good. Patterns are good. The plant parts, that are affected, obviously. And also an important part of this is just kind of asking what's already been done. Sometimes, they've already done something. Maybe they've sprayed it for a problem, or they treated it. Maybe they've, fertilized it. Maybe it's just recently planted, but they know kind of like the history of the site, or maybe it's in a wet spot. Maybe it isn't maybe it's in a location where they've had problems before, something like that. That kind of all helps. And so whenever you're asking these kind of questions, it's kind of an interview process on your part. It's you and the client. And that may take a few back and forths if it's a, you know, on the web, on the internet like this. But if they include a picture, a lot of times that does help clue us in sometimes as to other things that they may not have even noticed, but other things that may also help ask, you know, what for us to ask even more questions. So it's just one of those things where you just, as much information as you can get from a person, or if they, you know, can volunteer information, that's all kind of fills in sort of the gaps sometimes. And as John pointed out, I think earlier, you know, sometimes they don't give us a picture of the whole landscape or the whole plant. You know, you just see a piece or a leaf or something like that. So again, you know, kind of getting that whole picture of things really helps to sort of, you know, in your diagnostic process. Diagnosis is really almost an elimination, you know, of things. So if you can eliminate some of these things that are maybe not, you know, as much of a problem most of the time, and, you know, kind of go down another path. But sometimes you run into, you know, you have to turn around and you have to go backwards. You know, maybe you have to reconsider something. So, you know, you just want to go down, you know, the most efficient way to, you know, towards a problem solution. But again, getting that information's, you know, important. So I was going to go on the website, but we were having some, I felt a little nervous because we had some glitches here. So what I did was I pasted some of these into my PowerPoint. So these are actual questions, and I won't read the whole thing, but here we go. We have three dwarf boxwoods, and they gave us the planting date, which was nice. And then they kind of gave us their estimation of what the soil is. And then they, you know, basically are telling us kind of, you know, what's happening to this plant. So this is the before picture. This is an interesting question, kind of a two-parter. So I'm going to move from this slide to another slide. So this is the original installation, I guess, I assume. So when they put them in, you know, in September, you know, this is what they looked like. Okay. And now they have issues with, you know, the middle one here, you know, going a little yellow. So I want you to notice in this picture a couple things. So it's right up against this structure here. I don't know whether this is you know, what kind of building this is. I assume this is part of their house. They have a shrub back here, which is a dwarf evergreen. And they have these two evergreens either side of it. I also want you to note over here on the right, what is this thing? This is a downspout, right? So what's going on here? Is that handle all the water from, you know, maybe this roof structure, and maybe it's coming out here, maybe it floods this whole area? They really didn't add that in their description. And so, you know, they're talking away here on their description of other things, and they've already honed in. They might, you know, they think it might be a disease or a pest or root rot. But, you know, they didn't really describe how much moisture, you know, this plant might be getting from this downspout. So that's maybe a question that, you know, might need to be clarified later. So if we go to this next picture, it's obviously a different time and so forth. We've got the picture again. Now, what's missing here? Well, for some reason, you know, that other tree disappeared. That other shrub disappeared. I don't know whether it died or whether they got tired of it. That's definitely a question in my mind. Did that die? And now they also are starting to have a problem now with this one here. This is the middle little boxwood, this dwarf boxwood. They did give us a close-up, which is nice, of the foliage, so that we could kind of see, you know, we can kind of look at it and maybe, you know, sort of look for insects or diseases or something like that. So that sometimes that's hard. But at least at that, you know, in this picture here, I don't see any insects or diseases. I do see off color. I do see a fading of the foliage and so forth, which is common in evergreens that are declining. And so that's it. You know, that's the question. What's happening? So again, you know, if you're just looking at the pictures and these two look fine, well, how much longer are they going to be looking fine? You know, I guess that's one of my questions. I really want to know what happened to this shrub. And I would probably remove this and actually look at the root system. You know, if it's a fairly recently planted shrub, you're not going to do too much damage by digging it up and actually look at the root system. So, you know, my questions are here, was it a container plant, for example? You know, was it pop-out when they put it in? Was it the same, you know, from the same source? I probably was from the same source as these other two. But, you know, do the roots look, you know, sturdy? Do they look, you know, healthy? Are they showing discoloration? Are they showing signs of decay? What's the root system look like? You know, has it actually, you know, begun to establish, or is it still in the shape of the pot or the shape of the ball and burlap sack or whatever it was? I'm assuming these were container grown plants. So all those things might give us a clue. And then again, I would be curious as to how well this soil is draining, you know, in this particular location. So I'm not convinced that they have an insect or disease problem per se. In fact, one of my rules of thumb is, you know, if within the first couple of years, most plants, you know, don't die immediately from a disease or insect, especially if they're healthy when you put them in. You know, that takes time to accumulate and to actually kill plants. So most of the time it's a horticultural thing. It's an establishment problem, or it's a, you know, a soils problem, or it's a site problem where maybe it's exposure, maybe the plant really doesn't belong there. I don't think that's the case here, but unless that site is sort of, you know, waterlogged. So again, those are some of the questions I might have, you know, in answering this. And so when we answer these questions and it goes back, we don't always, you know, give them a yes, no, the definitive answer. We may come back with, you know, our own questions. And I think then you begin a conversation as well. You don't want to have a lengthy conversation too much, but you want to be able to drive home what are the important points here that we're actually looking at. And in my case, this would be an establishment issue, and I'd want to know more about the drainage and the root systems. So that sort of gives that one. Now this one, fortunately, has some good symptoms in the picture. So this is a question of a boxwood that's starting to lose leaves. It's turning brown, and they were clever enough when they did take this picture. They got the lesions in focus. They actually looked at the stems. Okay, they told us roughly when they were planted. Okay, or installed. And so this gives us a much better, you know, definitive answer. So when we see, you know, when we have some of this information and we know those lesions on the boxwood stems like that, then we can actually say that this is probably boxwood blight when we see those lesions on the green stem like that. And another picture, which I didn't paste on there, there were some lesions actually on some leaves as well. Now this also has some volutella in it too. I don't know if you can tell down here on this leaf here, there's actually some pink spores as well, but that's not uncommon to have mixed infections. The volutella is not that worrisome to me, but these dark lesions here on these stems mean that it has boxwood blight. So again, then once we know, we're pretty sure that that's the case, then we're going to ask more questions about, you know, well, how many plants, you know, are infected? How many plants are they starting to see? You know, were these new? Were these already there and you put new plants around them? Or, you know, those types of questions is going to give us some clues as to management. In most cases, we'd want to remove these plants, especially if they're recently planted. You can spray it for this disease, but it's a long-term process. So it'd be better to actually remove the infected plants and then hopefully monitor any existing plants that are already there. And maybe we can spray those and prevent them from becoming, but we wouldn't want to keep these in the landscape, for example. So that leads us to that whole, you know, management of disease. Once we've decided that it actually has a disease or an insect, then we can actually move it more towards the management rather than more of the diagnostic thing. So we kind of decided on what this is. We deal with everything. So here's an indoor plant. this person has this plant. They don't know really what it is. So they want us to identify the plant. So I don't know if anybody recognizes this. They've had it for 25 years. That's a long time. So, you know, it's dropped some branches. It's getting a little thin. It's getting a little leggy. They want to promote good growth. Okay, so again, my first rule is we have to kind of know the plant. So it's one of the Aralias. It's one of the house Aralias, probably one of the Ming Aralias. That's a common house plant. It's been around a long time. And we can look down at that pot, and I'm kind of wondering how often they repotted it. You know, it's not a very full pot. So I'm wondering if that's like, you know, just some soil that they have had around for a long time. The pot's just been there. They haven't given us any history, right? They don't tell us how they fertilize it, you know, how they take care of it, what kind of temperatures the room has, what kind of exposure this window is. Is this an east window or a west window? They do pretty well in, you know, moderate light. So if that's just sort of a north window, let's say, or maybe it's an east window that only gets a few hours of light a day, that's why it's stretching like that. I mean, they're pretty tolerant, but, you know, it could certainly use a little more light, I think, especially if they want it to grow fuller. So to make it grow fuller, you're going to have to do some pruning and some grooming on the plant. Anytime you want, you know, branches to come out down here on the farther down the stems. Now you do have a little bit of growth down here, so I guess it's getting some light. But, you know, you're going to have to prune back some of these tops. You're going to have to prune some of these side branches to actually make it bushier if they want that. But I would certainly recommend even, you know, propagating from cuttings on this thing if you wanted to, you know, start some more plants. And again, I would probably ask some questions like, well, how long, you know, have you repotted it recently? Do you fertilize it? You know, the hours of light, that type of thing. You know, just to kind of get a picture of maybe how the plants obviously last over 25 years, so they're doing something right. So if they just want to, you know, make it better, they just want to increase its vigor a little bit, those are some of the questions that I would ask, and maybe try to get at that sort of total plant care, you know. But anyway, just giving them the name of the plant is going to help them, because again, they can then look it up and see, you know, what they might, some other articles and so forth, you know. So this is never a good sign. They've got pictures of these growths on their roots. I don't know if you guys recognize this, but on oak trees and shade trees and things like that, when we get pictures of mushrooms like this growing on the roots, that's a danger sign. That means we have root decay and wood decay. So again, they want us to identify the fungus. Fortunately, this one's pretty easy. This one's Ganoderma, or artist conch, actually, applanatum. So it's definitely a wood decay organism. It's on these roots. The problem with, and he even mentions, or this person mentions that, you know, their house is close by. So you do want to encourage people with tree problems to have an arborist come out and investigate and actually do a series of tests to make sure that the plant is sound. You don't want the plant to come over in a windstorm and so forth. So an arborist is really the one equipped for that, but you're basically seeing the signs here, which is the actual organism that's causing the wood decay and the wood rot. So you've got strong evidence here that you've got a problem, you know, with wood decay, and that's never a good thing on a large shade tree. So again, we're helping them out here by kind of identifying this fungus and letting them know that this is sort of something they need to look at. This one's kind of a fun one. They've had some, you know, decay and some dying plants here. And if you look real closely, you know, at the base of these plants, you actually see these little round structures. I don't know if you can see these or not. They look like little seeds. Oops. They look like little seeds. And so this is southern blight. So again, occasionally we get lucky and people actually get pictures of the actual organism. So southern blight is a common disease on a lot of our different bedding plants and perennials and so forth and so on. So we know the treatment, we know the disease. So we can help them out here. They talk about, the small beads and stuff like, so they're actually pretty observant. And so we can help them out there, with that diagnosis and confirmation, and then we can help them with the treatment. We get a lot of pictures of dead grass, especially this time of year, and just as dead grass. So, there's a lot of questions there. Everybody thinks, that that's pretty diagnostic, it's just dead grass. So you really need a lot more questions about, what kind of grass they're growing. You can sort of anticipate or maybe assume some of these things. So, that might be a tall fescue lawn with some dead patches. You also want to know the time of the year. So this picture, I think, was taken back in August. So, that gives you some clues there. You want to know, basically, they tell us that they don't fertilize or use a weed killer, but we kind of want to know, was this a sod, situation, or was it seeded, or was it, how old the lawn is, how do they maintain it, what height do they cut it at, things like that. If at all possible, you don't always get all that information, but at least kind of knowing, the grass and sort of the time of the year, and we kind of, anticipate through, sort of our conditions and so forth in Central Maryland. We want to know what part of the state it's in, that type of thing. So this is a good indication of early brown patch on turf. So again, we can kind of, go through the management options here and so forth, but we've recently had other things that cause dead grass, like armyworms and things like that. So again, knowing the time of the year, knowing sort of the pattern of the damage. And so I want to finish up with a weed ID. This was sent in. And so fortunately, they took good pictures of the actual seed head. A lot of times we get weed pictures and they're just, the plant that's green. You have to go by leaf texture and arrangement and color and all. So, it's really hard. And that's where I lean on, our team, Miri and Krista and all those guys, really good at knowing plants that don't have flowers or seed heads and all that sort of stuff. It's really difficult sometimes if you get single plants or single leaves even, or, to really know what's going on. But this happens to be a Kalinga, which is a new invasive weed that's coming in from Asia. So it's a non-native, but it's establishing in our turf areas as well as some of our beds. And it says here, that they've used a weed crabgrass killer and doesn't seem to kill it. Well, that's also another clue that it's not, a regular weed. It's actually a sedge in this particular case. So it's a sedge that is, it needs, specific chemicals for the sedge control. If they're going to actually spray it, it's difficult to dig up because it forms rhizomes. It's actually a perennial. So knowing all those things, then helps with management as well. And I would get on it early because they said it started as a 1-by-1 patch and now it's expanding. So again, helping them sort of work through things that, are going to happen later and so forth, that's important too. So again, kind of asking those questions, kind of going through that little interview process in your mind, even though you're not talking to them, but, you're kind of trying to decide in your own mind, some of those answers, and you're kind of anticipating maybe what might be what might be the response. So I hope that helps. That's just
Yes, that was great. Thank you so much. So we've got, let's see, a couple of questions that we'll do. And I know we're a little overtime, folks, so I just wanted to let you know we're finished up with Dave's presentation. We've got just a couple questions, and then the end is just a fun trivia for everybody before we wrap it up. So our first question is regarding the oak tree root rot. Does the fungus cause the decay, or is the fungus a symptom of the decay?
The fungus is actually a pathogen, so it's an active decay organism. So it's causing the the tissue to basically break down.
Got it. And then Miri took care of one, and the next one's more of a comment. It would be great to answer all turf grass questions with a link to turf grass alternatives.
We can do, sometimes that's appropriate and other times, you can't soccer on, flowers. So again, you need that balance, or it depends what you're asking, the actual use of the turf for.
Absolutely. All right, so we are going to welcome back all of our speakers for today. Thanks everyone so much for your presentations. I think it was very informative. We covered a lot of information. Reminder to grab links out of the chat box, folks, if you want that before we go. And for now, at the end, we have some fun trivia questions that we're going to ask everybody. Don't worry, all of your answers are anonymous. It is not a test or a quiz. We just want to know, just want to have some fun with everybody and give you all a chance to participate, since it's just been us talking for the whole time. So we just have a few questions and we're going to give everyone about 30 seconds to send in your answer. Just a heads up, the poll from Zoom does pop up in a separate little window. So if you have a lot of windows open, you might not be able to see the poll, or you might have to move some windows on your screen around to look for it.